The Jordan was lower than the rumors made it. I had spent 6 days walking down from the highlands to find this river, and by the time I came over the last ridge I had built it up into something Pharaoh would have envied. It was a river the way most things are most things, smaller than the story, still doing the work. The crowd was bigger than the river, 200 along the banks, 60 more on the high path. Maybe 40 in the water itself, knee-deep, waist-deep, ducking under and coming up with hair plastered flat to their skulls. I stayed on the high path. The man in the river was tall and brown and lean the way men get when they have stopped eating with other people. His arms came up out of the water and pushed back down and came up again, and the people he was pushing went under and came up choking and laughing and crying without sorting which was which, and he never seemed to tire. His voice carried, "Brood of vipers." I almost laughed. I had been called worse in nicer tones. Who warned you to flee the wrath to come? Bear fruit worthy of repentance. A man near me on the path muttered, "He has been at this all morning." "He is at this every morning," another said. "Where does he sleep?" "Out there." A nod toward the wilderness. "Locusts, honey, hair, camel hair." The first man considered the man in the river. "He looks like he could take a Roman." "He will not take a Roman. He says the Romans are not the point." "What is the point?" "You are." Apparently. The man on the path spat thoughtfully into the dust and did not move toward the water. I did not move toward the water either. The rumors had not gotten this right. They said John pulled people in. He did not pull. He stood waist-deep and yelled at the riverbank, and the riverbank decided what to do with itself, and most of the riverbank stayed riverbank. Only some of it became river people. I stayed riverbank. A man went under, his hands grabbing for John's wrist on the way down, and came up gasping and put his face against John's bare brown shoulder for a count of 3 breaths, and John let him. John did not push him away. John did not preach into him. John let the man be a man having a moment, and then John turned him by the shoulders and faced him back toward shore, and the man walked out of the water and sat down in the reeds and put his head between his knees and cried like a child who had finally found a wall to lean on. I noted that. I noted it the way I noted everything, with a small, cold calculation. The man could now be persuaded to anything. I knew the look. I had been the whoever met him next a dozen times along the southern road. The freshly broken were the easiest mark on any road. So I watched John the way I had watched roadside fires from outside the firelight my whole life. I was hungry. The water-lasting wisdom of my profession went. Hungry men do not make holy decisions. Hungry men make food decisions. I had eaten the last of the bread the morning before. I had 2 figs in my pouch and a strip of dried fish that had begun to argue with my judgment. There was a woman selling barley cakes on the high path. She had set up where the wind would carry the smell. She was not a fool. The smell was working on me before I had counted her stack. I had 3 coins. I had walked 6 days to count 3 coins against a barley cake. I bought one. She gave me change in the smaller copper that people only carry when they want to keep their bigger coins from being spent by accident. I tried to give it back. She closed my hand around it with 2 of her fingers and said, "Eat the cake walking, not by the river. They will think you are pretending to be cleansed." Would they be wrong? Yes. Have you been in? Twice. Why twice? She shrugged. Once for me, once for my husband. He could not come? Why not? Because he is dead. She said it the way a woman says a thing she has finished arguing with God about, and I left her alone and ate the cake walking. It was a good cake. I watched John baptize a Roman, not what I expected. He came down the bank in a plain tunic without his iron, but I knew him by the way he walked. Shoulders squared from years of standing under a yoke of straps. Jaw set against the embarrassment of being out of formation. He stepped into the water, and his face did the thing soldiers' faces do when they have decided to stop being a soldier for one afternoon, and the afternoon is harder than any patrol. John did not preach at him. John only said, "What do you want?" The Roman said something. I could not hear it. The water carried voices oddly, the way water always does, taking the soft parts and giving back the hard parts and dropping the middle. John's hands went to his shoulders. Down. Up. The Roman came up shaking, and his face was wet, but it had already been wet because he had been crying before he went under, and when he turned to walk out of the river, his shoulders had unsquared. He walked like a man, not like a soldier. He walked like he was going home, even though I knew he was not. He was going back to his barracks. But for the half stadia between the river and the road, he was walking like he was free. The man on the high path who had spat in the dust said, "Did you see that?" "I saw it. They let them in. He let him in, they would not. Same difference." "No," I said, "it is not." I had not meant to speak. The man looked at me. He had a knife fighter's face, gentled by age into something I could not place. He was older than my father had been at the end. He had survived something. "What is the difference?" He let him in because he was a man. They would let him in because he was a Roman. He thought about that. What if a Roman is also a man? Then John is the only one in this country who has noticed. The old man laughed, not loudly, a short, surprised, dry laugh that did not last long enough to be cruel. "You are sharper than you look. I look thirsty. You looked also at the woman with the cakes. I bought one. You are softer than you look also. You are watching too closely. I have nothing else to do." He sat down on a stone and patted the next stone. I did not sit. I did not stand quite still either. I shifted my weight the way a road man shifts his weight, enough to keep my legs from cramping, not so much that the old man would mistake my staying for sitting. "What do you make of him?" He nodded toward John. "He is the cleanest man I have ever seen with the dirtiest job. And he will be killed for it." The old man's eyes did not move. When the wrong person gets baptized and a different wrong person hears about it. That is not a prophecy." "No," he agreed, "that is bookkeeping." We watched John for a while, down, up, down, up. A man with a withered hand went in. A woman with bruises old enough to be yellow went in. A boy, maybe 11, held his mother's wrist and was lifted entirely off his feet and came up sputtering, and the mother kissed his wet forehead in a way that made me look at the dust. "You will not go in," the old man said. "No. Why? I do not need to be cleaner, I need to be smarter. He cannot help me with that." "Have you tried smarter?" "Smarter is what put me on this hill." He grunted. That kind of grunt is worth more than most arguments. A man who grunts at the right time has heard you. A man who answers immediately has not. A little later he said, "He talks about another one." "Another what?" "Another coming, stronger, the strap of his sandal kind of thing. Every prophet talks about another one. That is the only way to keep the crowd. You think it is a trick. I think it is good policy. If you are right, you are right. If you are wrong, the next one carries it. And if you are wrong about whether it is a trick, then I am wrong and I drink the water like everybody else." The old man laughed again, drier this time. "You will," he said. "I will what? Drink the water like everybody else." "I will not. You will. You are very confident for a man who has not spent a day with me." "I have spent half a day with you. That is enough." I almost asked him his name. I almost did. There are decisions a young man makes on the side of a Jordan in the third hour of the afternoon that he carries his whole life. One of mine was not asking the old man on the rock his name. Putting this down now, with the lamp low and Eliezer asleep in the next room, I can feel the warm stone where he sat, and I know the story I told myself is a curtain. The shame is the same afternoon. I have not yet been able to write what was under it. I did not ask. He did not offer. When I looked back later, he was gone, and the stone was warm where he had sat, and I could not have said any more whether he had been one of John's or one of John's enemies, or whether he was the kind of old man who comes to rivers and watches young men make small cowardly decisions and lets them, because the river will be there a long time, and the young men will come back when they have run out of better arguments. I went down the path. I did not go into the water. I cut west and took the road back toward the highlands, because there was work there if a man was not picky, and I had been raised not picky and was now becoming experienced at it. I did not look back at the river until the sun was on my left. That night, in a shepherd's lean-to that smelled of sheep and old smoke, I dreamed the Jordan was not a river but a road, and the road was carrying everyone in one direction, and I was the only one walking the other way. I woke before dawn. I ate the last fig. I went on. That was John's water. I did not drink it. It drank a part of me anyway. One thing I will set down here before the chapter closes, though I did not know it the day I walked west. My sister Tamar had come down to the Jordan in a different week, on her own road, on a day I was not there to watch her or be watched by her. She had gone in. She had come up. A woman of about her age had held her by the shoulders to steady her on the muddy step, and had said Tamar's name back to her 3 times so that she would not forget it. The woman had not given her own name in return. My sister had taken that as a small kindness. a stranger refusing to make the moment about herself. Tamar would not learn until 2 winters later that the stranger had been Mary, and that Mary had also begun a new life at John's water, on a day I was not there for either of them. The river was busy that year. It had more work to do than any one man on a high path could see.